Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Your Digital Marketing Coach podcast. AI, small business. This is a topic on this podcast, and unless you're living under a rock, you are already probably implementing AI in different ways, personally in your business as we speak. Small business, right? A lot of you I know are small business owners, entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast that also want to know you don't have enterprise budgets. You can't, create apps tapping into ChatGPT APIs, and you work at a very, very different level. So today, I'm really, really excited to bring on an old friend, a fellow Adobe Express ambassador, who is also the author of this book, AI for Small Business, which is written just for you. And it's going to be the topic of what we're going to talk about today. And Phil, usually before I start recording, I ask you for the correct pronunciation of your last name, but I'm going to say Phil Pallen, and hopefully I got that right.
You 100% got it right. Thank you for clarifying and also just hitting a home run right at the start.
Yay! And that's, wow, a baseball terminology from a Canadian. I'm impressed. But anyway,
I know.
you got
Don't
baseball.
expect any more sports terminologies coming from me. That was not normal for me. Okay.
All right. So for those that don't know Phil, so I mentioned Adobe Express. I already gave you a little hint. Phil is a creative branding marketing guru, especially like on the creative side. Really, really popular YouTube channel, but popular throughout social media. Speaker on stages throughout the world. So I want to begin with number one. How did you get to doing, like, did you go to art school, or like, how did you get to doing what you're doing now? And then, a lot of people, and for us that have been, I'm not going to say brainwashed, but educated by Adobe and Adobe Express, we understand the connection between AI and creative. But I think a lot of people might be surprised. Well, if you're like into creative, how could you write a book about AI? So that's like a double-edged sword, a double-edged question. But I thought that would be a great leeway into today's conversation.
It's a great place to start. And I am unusual in this landscape, I would say, in
Join the
that,
club.
yeah, you know what, Neal? Like, I didn't formally study design. I studied media undergrad. My degree was called Media Information and Technoculture. From
Cool.
Canada, did my undergrad at Western University, and then I did my master's in the U.S. at a school called Full Sail University. Did my master's in entertainment business, and that was I was really excited to study at a media school and study entertainment. I had done a little bit of television when I was young in Canada,
Oh, wow.
hosting. Yep, and I know we're going way back. A lot of people don't know this about me because lots has happened since then, but it kind of paints the picture for what I do now. When I started, I moved out to LA the day that I graduated. And I thought, okay, I think I'm supposed to go work at an ad agency. I know from my degree that I love branding more than I love spreadsheets.
Mm.
That feels like something I would do for fun, almost like a hobby. So don't we all want a job that we find fulfilling and exciting and something that you'd almost do as a hobby? At least that's kind of what guided me. And I thought, the first three people that I met that became clients, makeup artist, real estate agent, and a jewelry designer, all of them needed help in 2011 with
Mm.
social media and building their online presence. All the jobs that I applied for at agencies, I didn't get. But I thought, gosh, if I could help what feels like people that need more help than the big businesses and the enterprises right now, the solopreneurs, the small business owners, if I can help enough of these people every month, I could probably pay my rent and buy my groceries out in Los Angeles. And that is how I started. And the truth is, it's all I've ever done. I've never worked for anyone. I started my business in 2011. Since then, I've worked with over 400 people and brands across more than 30 countries. I've been speaking on stages for over 10 years. I'd say the biggest inflection point came right before the pandemic when you'll like this. So I sent a video to a client. I said, let's pretend you're my client, Neal. I said, Neal, here's how to update your blog on your Squarespace website. It's really simple. And the client said, Phil, why don't you post videos like this on YouTube? It was really entertaining to watch and I learned a ton. I thought, God damn, that's advice I'd give someone. I should probably
Wait.
take that advice.
This is 2019. You
Yeah,
hadn't done a lot of videos
no.
before then. I had
No,
no
I had
idea.
done a few. If someone else was like, Phil, come teach or do a webinar or no, yeah, this was very late. This was only a few years ago when I
Wow.
took my own YouTube channel seriously. I literally dusted it off and thought, I much prefer making videos than I do long form writing. Of course, wrote a book this year, so that's a whole other topic. But this is how I'm comfortable, and this is the way that I enjoy creating content, teaching people and teaching people in this medium. And so when I started to take that seriously, and I cared less about what others would get from watching my video and more from me penciling time into my calendar and saying, hey, I'm going to make a YouTube video this week about branding strategies. I'm going to
Mm.
make a YouTube video this week about this new marketing software that I'm going to try and see if I like it. I made a video about trying ChatGPT when it became generally accessible. And 4 months later, I got an email from the publisher saying, we loved how you explain ChatGPT to beginners. Would you like to write a book about this for small business owners? That's how that came
Ah,
about. So for
ah.
me, content creation has always been more, and building my career has always been more about what do I get from it than someone else. And then, of course, folding in opportunities with brands is now the primary thing that I do. I create dedicated videos every week on YouTube partnering with brands. So that's kind of a little bit about that quick little evolution since the beginning.
That is awesome. And it's also a reminder for those listening. I will say that I have gotten uh, lots of different opportunities have come my way from Twitter back in the day. They don't happen today. Just it's become political media, as you've heard me talk about before. And speaking on stages, this is the first time I've heard about someone getting a book deal from YouTube, and it just shows YouTube's incredible influence. And Phil is not someone that's been doing this like Mr. Beast since, for the last 15 years, relatively recently. So I think that's really inspiring and hopefully encouraging to all of you. But obviously, we're not going to be talking about YouTubers today. We're going to be talking about AI.
Yes.
And so you had created videos about how to explain, and by the way, Phil, thank you for all that introduction. I feel our paths are very similar. I started in January 2010 when all these different companies from different industries, they all needed help with their social media. For me, they were small businesses at the time that were more like corporate, but very very similar roots, and haven't looked back since then. So
For the
congratulations.
record, I don't need an intro of you. I already knew who you are. And then when I sat down beside you at Adobe Max, I thought, Neal Schaffer, I know who you are. And now I'm going to introduce myself because I knew you from Twitter.
Amazing, thank you, sir. And yeah, Full Sail University. I had a lot of hits on a lot of my blog posts from Full Sail University, and a lot of people connecting with me. So maybe that's where it started. I
Yeah,
don't know, but anyway,
probably.
I do want to get into the book. So a publisher, and this is like major publisher reaching out to you from YouTube, and you had a video explaining ChatGPT for beginners. So I'm really curious because obviously, like anything else, I mean, I just finished a complete revision of a book I wrote a year ago about LinkedIn, and AI, we know, changes rapidly. Obviously, what you've written is a very, very evergreen guide. But
Yeah.
how did you go from teaching beginners how to use ChatGPT to a full-on AI for small business, right? That's, how did you go about deciding, what you were going to talk about, how you're going to talk about it? Because I think that will help our listeners also understand the way they need to be thinking about AI for their small business.
Yes. So great question. Also, experiencing the publishing route versus self-publishing. I self-published a book 2015. I have experience with both of those, and the journeys were very different. But I really, Neal, thought I kind of put my content creation hat on and thought, what do people need? Not even content creation, I'd say also branding. I think owning a branding agency and having worked with different clients in all different industries, that's given me a front row seat into some really fascinating careers, industries, client work. So rather than thinking about, oh my God, this feels like a marathon, how do I even begin? It's kind of like, what is that first mile marker? Small business owners, what do I know to be true? I know that every small business owners wear a lot of different hats. Okay. And so, unlike maybe enterprise, where people are very siloed, this is my job, this is my department, this is what I do, small business owners have to do everything. And I thought that would probably be a good place to start. Certainly, there are areas of running a business that I know from experience and from my expertise. So, marketing, social media, those were categories or chapters of the book that I was very confident writing. I did have the publisher come back to me and say, Phil, our goal is for this to be a well-rounded book. 60% of the book can't be about marketing. Damn it, marketing ready. That's what I know. And so in that moment, Neal, I thought, this is not about me flexing everything I know. This is part, here's what I've learned and here's what here's what I know. But it's also part research project. I'm sure your books, you've much more experience. I was, by the way, so appreciative before I get to say this, I was so appreciative to have your support. Not only when I published the book, but throughout the process of writing it, I reached out to you a few times. I was like, what the hell am I doing? And you were always so helpful. But I accepted that this book would be an opportunity for me to showcase what I know, and what I've learned, but also research new things. Like I didn't know much about HR. I didn't know much about security and compliance and some of these aspects that are really important for business owners. So it was equal parts expertise and equal parts research.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I will say that, it's funny. The first books I wrote, I did zero research because I had this philosophy that I did not want to be influenced by anything and anyone on earth, right? I wanted it to be solely based on my ideas. But over time, you think back to university days, you have to write a thesis. You need to back up your thesis. What did other people say? What's the data? So I think that research is important. And indeed, I'll say a lot of my blogging that I still do, a lot of it's research because I want to learn, right? Facebook ads for real estate, right? Well, what are special, ad categories on Facebook and what are the limitations? And this is a blog post I wrote last night. So a lot of it is research because I want to learn and I want to share what I learn, right? Yeah. So I totally get that. And, appreciate your being very transparent about that as well, because it's impossible for us to know everything, right? And we have our strengths and that's okay because you're going to be talking about AI for HR for compliance from a different perspective than a compliance expert, and that's great, right? We all need different
exactly. I will say now, working in branding, that I think qualified me quite well, given that throughout the book I wanted to draw on all different types of small businesses. And I have not worked with just one industry or one sector. Clients will say to me, Phil, what's your specialty? Do you specialize in hospitality branding? Or do you specialize in hospitality? And my favorite thing to say to that is, no, I don't. You do. My job is to make sure that you make a strong first impression online in 3 seconds or less. The best brands recreate the in-person experience. That's been my philosophy since day one. So photography, brand identity, social media, all of these types of things feed into how someone experiences you. And if I can have some influence on making sure that those two experiences are consistent, then I've done my job. But the book, how do you write a book about AI on the traditional publishing route where I had to submit the manuscript? Not quite, but nearly a year ahead of time. I had to focus on the things that were least likely to change. So examples, stories of clients having productivity challenges or other organizational challenges. How can they use AI to tackle those things? And not just advanced, but some of these are very beginner. And so stories, tool recommendations, prompt examples are what I kind of built the book around. Even then, tools have come and gone since I published the book, and that's kind of stressful for me.
Yeah, no, this rewrite of my LinkedIn book, I have a dedicated chapter on using AI for LinkedIn. And yeah, I completely rewrote it, expanded it, and it's very, very different than it was a year ago. And yes, some tools have come and gone, and my view on tools has changed as well. So, but let's dig a little bit deeper into your book and your expertise. So, as we were prepping for this interview, you said one of the ways to get started, and I will say get started or rethink how you're using AI, is to look for small wins. And I'd love for you to go a little bit deeper into that topic and help our listeners. Maybe they thought they found some quick wins, maybe they've missed some others, but where do you get started if you want to start to really infuse AI into your operation?
So one of my pet peeves is content that's designed to stress people out. And small business owners don't need more stress. So any of this content that's like, you're too late, you've already missed the boat, like that's all nonsense. People are trying to sell you products. I think in many cases, if you've stayed laser focused on the challenges in the areas of focus in your business, then you should be commended for that. So there are very successful businesses without social media, and there are very successful businesses without AI implemented yet. But,
Amen.
where can we start to slowly and responsibly integrate these tools? I'm a big fan of tracking your time. For some people, like a week it can be a whirlwind, and it's hard to kind of take that apart and figure out where we can make improvements. So I love tracking. I'm tracking my time right now. For example, I'm
Uh-oh.
recording a podcast with
On the
you.
clock.
Yep, I'm on the clock because this is work. And actually, there's a psychological element there that I think is really important. This is just as important. Promoting my brand or promoting my book is just as important as doing client work, in my opinion. And so I'm on the clock. And this is a category in my Monday.com called podcasts and press. And so I'm a big believer in tracking your time. I use a tool called EverHour. There's another tool called Rise that's really good. Rise with a Z. I'm Canadian, so I say Z.
Zed.
All kinds of tools. I mean, I don't even care if you take a notebook and write out what you do and how many minutes you spend. The point is, at the end of every week, have a recurring calendar invite, 15 minutes a week. I want you to look back at your week and ask 3 questions. Where did I spend time making high impact in my business? Where did I spend time doing things that I really enjoyed and love doing? Quick example. I love making my YouTube graphics, my video graphics. I do them in Adobe Express, whether it's like stock media or titling. Yeah, I should delegate that, but I enjoy doing it, so I continue doing it. Third thing, probably the most important question to ask is, what did I not enjoy doing? And what could I delegate to someone else or now automate using AI? Those are the 3 questions, and having something tangible, having something rooted to be able to, reflect back on is, I think, the starting point.
So very similar. Thank you very much for that. I guess very similar to, correct me if I'm wrong, the analogy. If you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have any more time in the day, I need to hire a VA. I hear pretty similar advice. Track your time. What do you, and the same thing. Put different tasks into different quadrants, and so is that another way of thinking about it? And then I'm assuming from there you're going to recommend people start with the stuff they don't like or stuff that takes up a lot of time that's not impactful, or both.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to be able to look back and go, okay, some of these things are not the best use of my time. Sorry, there's workers in my house. Can you hear them?
All good. Yeah, no worries.
Oh, okay.
It adds a little bit of color to the recording. All good.
I need him to keep that door shut. Yeah. Okay, let me try that again. So the question was similar to
the analogy of the virtual assistant of, do you recommend people go for what they don't enjoy doing, what's taking up the most time, or least impactful? Where do you start with that list then once you have it?
Yeah, so basically, once you have that list, you want to comb through that and go, what are some of the things here that don't bring me joy? I mean, that's honestly the metric I use. What on this list does not bring me joy? I think everyone, if they spent the majority of their time doing work that they enjoy, not all the time, that's not realistic, but most of the time, Neal, if we can focus our energy on the areas we make high impact and the things we enjoy doing, that's the key for success in business. And you either automate or delegate the things you don't enjoy, the things that are not worth your attention. I'll give you an example. I love examples. I hate taking time to reply to emails from people wanting me to do affiliate deals promoting their brands and products.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Join the club.
Drives me crazy. And so, and also, Neal, it's time consuming. It is so time consuming if you're replying to them manually. And is that, if it's a deal you're not going to do, is it really worth your time? No. So here's a solution. I have an email template. This isn't even AI. This is in Google Mail. I save a template called No Purely Affiliate Deals. Okay. Literally hit reply. And choose that template that says, thanks so much for the offer. I don't do purely affiliate deals. Happy to explore paid partnerships. Check this link on my website, Best Phil. So that's the beginner route. Now, I also use an email tool called SaneBox, which
Me too.
or
Love it.
yeah, you use SaneBox. Oh, that's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So it automatically organizes these emails incoming. So almost nothing comes into my inbox. It gets organized into a folder, and I have a folder trained for pitches, and that is
Ah,
my lowest priority folder when people are pitching me and want to do affiliate deals. Okay. That's different than my brands folder, which are when they say we'd love to explore a paid partnership. SaneBox has the ability to identify this is a good lead for Phil and this is a bad lead for Phil. And it's just by dragging like emails into that folder that it learns. One more
mm,
tool. I'm a geek for tools. Serif is another email tool that will actually write your responses. It does not send emails, but it will write the draft for you based on your previous inbox behavior. And so
very cool.
that tool, yeah, so I have SaneBox that organizes it, and I have Serif that automatically writes my response. I may need to change one or two words, but a lot of times, particularly for the types of emails I get often, I can literally just click send. So there, we gave three kind of, well, two tools and one example. I like to give like a non-AI solution also. An
Yeah.
email template alone can save you a ton of time. We want you focused on high impact work and work that you enjoy.
And Gmail has the ability, it's a plugin to have saved responses. I use that. I want to share, since we're talking about automation, I get pitches for, will you add my tool to your tool list? Can I be on your podcast? Or the other one is, can we swap links? So I literally have a spreadsheet, a Google sheet with 3 different tabs, and I automate it with make.com, and it goes into my ConvertKit. So when I add them to the sheet, they get tagged. They get into Make, sends them to ConvertKit, they get put into a separate form, and they get a separate email. And I might follow up with them, I
Genius.
might not follow up with them. And then I do whenever I get someone new, I do a search. And if I've sent them a message before, then I put them in my same black hole. And anything that comes from a Gmail like email address, into my same black hole. So if you don't use, Sane Later, you probably should, because it's really really incredibly efficient. But there's a lot of different ways to automate this. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Love it. Love it. And I want to add something like, I learned just as much from other people, other small business owners, other AI enthusiasts than they might learn from me, even though I wrote a book about this topic. This is such a new era, a new age, that I think it's really important. Even if I'm an author on this topic, it's important for me to be humble. Um, there's so much for all of us to learn. Nothing brings me more joy than talking to someone like you that has a brand new workflow that I may not have thought about. And that's like the beauty of this space right now, is the learning is so fresh. It's very, very exciting.
Agreed. There's so many different ways of interpreting. It's sort of like the beginning of Twitter, the beginning of social media. There's no rules,
Yes.
right? And with AI, there's no rule book. It's sort of like when we brought home our baby from the hospital. What's the rule book for raising a kid? There is no rule book, right? Everybody raises them differently. So AI is very much the
Figure it
same. And I
out
want
by
to ask
doing.
you, so it's taking that one step further in terms of, you've done your time tracking, you have some ideas of what you want to use AI for. Would you today, Phil, recommend you simply start a conversation in your favorite LLM, whether it be ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini, and say, hey, I spend way too much on this. How can I best leverage you to help me save time? And I mean, would that be a valid way of getting started?
I think every way of getting started is a valid way.
Great
My
point.
second pet peeve are people that push the quote perfect prompts onto you. There's no perfect prompt. That's like me saying to you, Neal, you can only speak English the way that I speak English, and my way of speaking is the best way. It doesn't
Well,
exist.
there's a president that's preaching that, but anyway.
Well, right. Yes. Yes. So the best way to learn is by doing. And it's funny, even though I wrote the book and I did have some help, there were 3 of us that worked on it together, researching, writing, and doing all of the other components that are required to write a book. I'm more of a speaker. So you might actually write out your prompt in Chat GPT or any other generative AI tool. Some people prefer Gemini, some people prefer Claude. They're all different, they're all great in their own way. I talk things out. So I'll open the Chat GPT app, for example, hit the microphone and just start talking. And that for me takes pressure off of me to like write something perfectly. I don't know why. when something isn't writing, it feels like you have to put extra thought into it. I'll do exactly what you just said. Here's a challenge that I'm facing. Here are some ideas on how I think I might solve it, but I'd love your input now. And then I try to be specific in what I'm asking. So rather than leaving open ended, I'll normally say, give me 5 considerations, or let's explore 3 different ways of solving this problem. And then I would just remind people that it's a conversation, so it doesn't have to be perfect. The output, the first result you get, should ideally not be the final result. It should be the beginning of a conversation, just like you and I are having right now.
Yeah, amen. I say the exact same thing. I codify my own framework that I'm putting in my next book. But yeah, I agree 100%. So I'm assuming once small businesses or whoever's listening, maybe they want to find a new way of using AI that they haven't used before. They go through this process, they find something. I'm assuming it becomes addictive like crack. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that with AI. This is so helpful. What else can I do? And at some point, I'm assuming we begin to use it more and more, as we have, Phil, right? It becomes a
Yeah.
daily tool that we use. So going on from there, how then you recommend as the second step is to sort of systemize everything now that you're doing? How would one go about doing that? Because that might be where a lot of people are at right now. They have a lot of different conversations going on. They're not really as strategic as they could be in systemizing what they're doing. So what would your recommendation be for them?
Yes. So many people are in that stage, that you just described. They are in that stage of, okay, I see the novelty and I see the ways in which it helps me, but how do I make this sustainable? How do I
Mm.
fold this into something that it will make me even better at what I do? Here's something that is hugely important to me right now, and everything that I explore and teach. AI can be used as a shortcut. Uh, it can be certainly used as a sign of, or it can be seen as a sign of laziness. And we see it all the time. Go open LinkedIn right now and see and read, one of the first posts you'll see when scrolling, and, M dashes, or for me, it's like the contrast setup. It's not this, it's this. I just drives me crazy.
It's not just this,
Yeah.
but also, yeah, there's
But
definite patterns that
totally.
we all, yeah.
Totally. So I want to challenge people to think about how they can use AI not as a shortcut, but as a way to do what they do even more with even more excellence. So let me give an example. I'm a brand strategist. When I'm hired by a client to position, build, and promote their brand, I might work with them for 4 to 6 months, sometimes even longer, but the duration of a project is typically in that 4 to 6 month range, where we're photography, brand identity, designing a logo, pulling this all together on a website, and then devising a social media strategy for them. So what I can do now with AI that I couldn't do before is record and take intelligent notes on every single call. You
Mm.
and I can have a note taker. Well, actually, Riverside incorporates AI features. So
Yep.
you and I can just focus right now on having a conversation, knowing that AI will record it, transcribe it, and intelligently digest the conversation, which removes pressure on us. I record every single conversation that I have in front of my computer. I even have now a physical device called Claude. I haven't done a brand deal with them, but Claude, if you're listening, I like this because it's a physical device that if I'm not in an environment, or I'm out on a run and I don't want to open up an app, blah blah blah, I can literally click it and get my notes down. Those notes can
Wait,
be saved into a ChatGPT project, which I'm a huge fan of. This is probably my answer to your question, which is you have to take this information and organize it. So for me, I'll have a ChatGPT project. I use the Teams plan, which is the entry point in ChatGPT to not train the model on your data. When in doubt,
okay.
don't use OpenAI. When in doubt, use Adobe Firefly integrated in tools like Adobe Acrobat, which do not train the model on your data. I believe Magi is another good one that allows you to try multiple tools, multiple models at once, but doesn't train the models on your data. Very important if you're dealing with sensitive information or client conversations. I organize everything into projects. with the different tools that I use. Adobe Studio just launched. I just published a video on this an hour ago, and that's like their kind of version of making a project from this information. Rather than having like sticky notes in all different places on all different surfaces, that's not conducive to execution. We need to make sure all of this is organized in one place. I have transcripts of every call with my clients from the moment we start the project to the moment we end. And when I'm writing that about page copy, I can say, comb through the last 4 months of conversations and help me get some inspiration on a good story we can tell that illustrates my client Neal's tenacity. Okay, I couldn't do that before. And so that's
Brilliant.
an example of how I'm using AI to do my job, a brand strategy better.
Yeah, it's funny. There was a time, and I was a big, because of the date that we're recording this, I was a huge ChatGPT fan until ChatGPT 5. And I literally had some major deliverables that I needed a lot of ChatGPT help on the weekend that it launched. And it was just slow and it would change conversation. And so I began using Claude. So Claude has
Claude's my
projects.
writer.
Yeah, that too. Very refreshing. ChatGPT also has projects, but there was a time when it's like, I'm going to codify everything with custom GPTs. And I find myself going back to projects and using less custom GPTs. And I'm curious if you
me
could,
too.
and I think a lot of people at the beginning, it's like, oh, it's all about the custom GPTs because, AI forgets. But I find the projects, uploading, files, as you just mentioned, and having those closed containers really helps me get a higher quality result. So I'm curious for those that are listening, and there's still a lot of questions, custom GPT project, how, based on the time that's gone by since you've written the book and your experience, how would you respond to that? Would you, give similar advice that custom GPTs are just for very rote, repeatable, not needing much customization type of short form, content, or do you have a different view?
So I love that we're having this conversation. I love that we're having this conversation, and we're having this conversation because you and I are leaning on our own personal experiences of using these tools. So that's my asterisk for this. One is not right or wrong. This is just our experience. That friends listening, new friends, you'll learn this by doing, and that's the only way you learn it. So custom GPTs, I think, are novel, and I think they're not useful for 95% of the population. Let me give an example of, for someone, one of my business besties, Becca Harpain from Inside the Square. She was just on Amy Porterfield's podcast this week talking about custom GPTs. Becca, very niche. She creates YouTube tutorials to customize your Squarespace CSS. She has a ton of existing content online, tutorials, written videos. She took the time to consolidate all of her information that was very practical into a custom GPT, and has one that is wildly successful called Custom Cody. And that's why Amy interviewed her, because this was the perfect example of someone who should have a custom GPT. It's very practical, tactile, tangible information that she's been creating for quite literally years. Now, what's key to this is she not only just consolidated and gathered the information, she tested this thing for months before launching it. So custom GPTs are great, but they're not time savers. It's probably actually going to take you even more time because of how much you need to test it to make sure that it's a viable product, particularly if it's something you're selling. And Phil Pallen ain't got that time to test a custom GPT. In fact, Neal, when I use projects, and I say projects inclusive of all the different tools, most of the apps and tools have some kind of projects feature. I don't like uploading files into ChatGPT project files. There's a dedicated area. I find that when you have more than 3 or 4, definitely 5 files in there, the whole project and its chats become sluggish. I'm more of a fan of uploading the projects within the files, I should say, within the chat that I'm having. I find it works better. I do reach a point, like if I've been working from a chat in there for, let's say, 4 months, 3 months, if there's a lot of PDFs or a lot of rich media, it does become eventually unusable. And that's definitely a weakness. I would say another weakness is citations. So if I am working on a project where I feel I need citations, no risk of hallucination, I want to be able to click every single fact that AI is feeding me and see where it came from. I use Acrobat for that because citations are built into it. So it is giving me an output based on the input. I don't open my book in ChatGPT. I don't upload it. I don't own my book. It's a publisher owns it.
Right.
I was
That's
commissioned
right.
to
Yeah.
write it. So I don't even have permission to Simon & Schuster had an email that went out that said, do not upload your books to ChatGPT. But I can open my PDF of my book in Acrobat and work safely with it and write my social media content there. So those are like a few examples, but I'd say generally the project's kind of structure within these tools has been likely the single-handed most revolutionary for my productivity and my work.
Yeah, I'd say for efficiency, right? It just
Yeah.
organize everything. So, Phil, before we leave, I know one of the things you wanted to talk about were the pitfalls that a lot of small businesses run into using AI. I feel like we've covered some of them, but are there any that we've missed?
I would remind people that this is not a race. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So don't let anyone stress you out and kibosh your afternoon plans because you feel like you need to sit in front of your computer and learn all of this stuff from scratch. That's nonsense. I do think it's a good idea to prescribe, or keep some AI experts in your feeds on hand, whether it be email, LinkedIn. I get your emails and your LinkedIn posts. I post on YouTube every single week. So keep experts that you can trust handy, because it's their job to comb through this stuff and make sense of it for you. It's not your job. You're a small business owner. You already have so much on your plate. I'd say keep your eye on the prize is the most important thing. Where does your time need to go? It needs to go where you make high impact in your business, and it needs to go where where you enjoy the areas of your business that you enjoy. Focus on those things and explore AI as a solution or as part of the solution to some of those challenges.
Yeah, well said, my friend. And I have a feeling that you're probably also a Marie Kondo fan. Does this spark joy or not? Because that's that defines what I do as well in my job. And I'll tell you, there's some days once the novelty of AI wears off, it's a job, it's work. There's some days I just don't want to deal with a ChatGPT interface, and that's okay as well, right? We're human.
It's perfectly fine. I have my notebook right beside me and my paper and my pen. When I did
That's
my
right.
brand photos, I thought as much as I lean into technology, I also want to capture like an analog moment. As an investor, I want to invest in the retreats and the technology-free things coming in the future because we are going to tire of it.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Phil, this has been amazing. I did want to ask you, because as you were speaking, I didn't have a chance to ask you, that little device that that went onto your iPhone or Android smartphone, is that basically an audio recorder with Wi-Fi that will then upload it directly to ChatGPT or to, okay, got it. Very cool.
Exactly. Just a simple kind of physical device. Now, obviously, you want to, like, if you're recording a conversation, you want to disclose it. But I find it more for myself. Like, there are moments where I want to capture an idea and do something with it later. And now having that as like a physical device always on my phone, I find that really helpful.
Yeah, very cool. All righty. Well, there you have it. Obviously, Phil is a wealth of knowledge, of experience, great person that wants to share, a true educator. So thank you so much, Phil. Obviously, I'm assuming, AI for a small business, they could buy it at any bookstore, online or offline. But where else can we send people if they want to make sure that they have you in their feed going forward?
Absolutely. Instagram and LinkedIn are the platforms I spend the most time. And then obviously, related to AI content, I'm publishing 2 to 3 YouTube videos a week on YouTube.
Wow.
I stay very, very, very busy making videos and I enjoy it. So those are the 3 places that we can connect. And I'll look forward to it. If you took the time to listen to this, please say hello in the DMs.
And I'm assuming that your handle on all these is PHILPALLEN.
Bingo. That's it.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much, Phil. And yeah, I can't wait to see you at Adobe Max and hear about the latest and greatest what you've been working on.
Can't wait. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.